Oh, it talks to me as well. Amazing. Okay, so this part we're going to record because it seems a lot of people are not here today, and who might be coming in late. So I don't usually record the explanation bits, but only the meditation usually, but for speak. So we're going to do this. So yes, connecting to the goddess Kuan Yin. This course is not only about connecting to the divine deity, it is also about connecting to that part within you that is about compassion, which exists in every single one of us and within our authentic self. It's a very important and big part. And when you hear people say things like, follow your heart, let your heart guide you, and compassion is part of that too, because compassion is one of, the greatest loves there is. It's unconditional. When we give out of compassion, we usually give in almost basic instincts. Out of giving, that's purely a type of love out of giving. And it's usually when we give from compassion, we don't actually expect anything back. And that is one of the reasons. It's one of the most beautiful and the greatest types of love that is actually unconditional. And who better to explore compassion with than the goddess Kuan Yin? Now, the goddess Kuan Yin, she is known as the goddess of compassion. Some call her the goddess of mercy. And one very interesting fact is that this name of the goddess of mercy or goddess of compassion actually was from a missionary some ancient time ago when they visited Asia and discovered this goddess that is so well loved by, the local people. And they saw it as a kind of Mother Mary kind of figure and gave her the name of Goddess of Compassion. So she has many, many names actually, and she has many, many forms. And if you started reading from page number 2, you would know that, that's why I've titled it the goddess, protector god, heavenly being, Buddha, human, who exactly is Kuan Yin. There is many stories about her origin, and it seems that in different countries, they have different kind of folklore about her, how she came about in her different manifestations, as well as, how she has been teaching. And one of the very interesting things across the board seems to be that she always teaches through compassion, and she always teaches through the actual action of doing. So she not only kind of preaches, but she actually does things in order for people to understand and kind of almost sometimes shocks into their systems that this is it. She's like a bit of a catalyst of awakening, if you like, in those instances. So as written here, you can see an explanation of her name. So in Chinese, she's known as Kuan Yin or Guan Shi Yin. Kuan Yin actually means, these two simple words actually means observe sound. So this in itself is a very interesting concept. We often listen to sound, and that's the normal and the very usual habitual way of doing things. When you hear a sound, you listen. But for her, she not only listens to the sound, but she observes what is actually going on beneath that sound, as well as anything else that, is about that sound. And her full name, which is Guan Shi Yin, actually means the one who hears the cries of the world. So she hears all cries of suffering, no matter who it is or where that person is or even what being it is that's crying out for her help. She can hear all and help all because of her great compassion. And how she actually does this is not only by listening to what the people who are praying to her actually saying, but actually understanding the root causes and the deeper issues of why they are suffering. And in this course, one of the things I would like to do is really to get down to the roots of why, so that you can all find your why of, what is your root cause and why is it that you're doing whatever you're doing, or whatever patterns that are playing out, or whatever trauma that you're still holding on to. So this is why it's very interesting to be able to do this with her. So there's many names. She is known as Avalokiteshvara, which is her Sanskrit name. So she would be known as that in India as well as Tibet and different parts of the world. And I've also put down the many different manifestations she can transform into. Because one of the things that is interesting about Kuan Yin is that, although she has popular forms, that she often appears like a goddess in a white robe, but she also has transformed herself into many different forms. It's like having different keys in order to open different doors to help different beings. So because there's so many different types of beings and different, people with individual needs, characters and personalities, she's basically kind of manifesting in a way that works for whoever she is trying to help, basically. And that is why she has forms that are male, as these protector gods. Some of them are very feisty looking and very kind of mighty looking male figures. And then she also has the more feminine figures, who's like the goddess herself. I've also put down some folklore here, how she appears in Taoism. There's a folklore about, her being an ancient princess who actually saved the country because her father, who ruled the country, was extremely cruel. So, but she saved, the country and saved the people through her own doing and bit by bit to do so in order to just save people. So there was really no kind of reward in return because she's already of nobility and she didn't need to do all the things she did. But she renounced her father and she went against her father and did a lot of people very, very much so, a lot of good. So that's just one of the stories. I've put down a few more stories there for you that you can also read in your own free time. But it's just important to understand that although Kuan Yin appears in a very female form in a lot of the popular statues, popular paintings and pictures, that she is not really only female. In ancient times especially, she is more known as a male figure. But because of her compassion and also in our modern times, we have really taken the idea that, compassion is a kind of feminine quality. And therefore, she's taken on this more popular look of a natural goddess. So she is much, much more than that. So understand when we talk about Kuan Yin, we're talking about a being who is manifesting as different forms of male as well as female forms. So there's no particular biases in that. She just appears however she needs to be in order to help whoever she's helping. So I'm going to read you this paragraph from the Lotus Sutra. And if you are new to Buddhism, Sutra is basically an ancient text like a holy script. And there's actually many, many sutras written about the goddess Kuan Yin. And this is one of the ones that describe her 33 manifestations. And that's not included as well as, Avalokiteshvara, Lokeshvara, those are all different forms from different cultures as well. So, but these 33 forms are described here in the Lotus Sutra. So that's on page number 3. So I'm going to read you that blurb on page number 3 of the Lotus Sutra. The Buddha said to the Bodhisattva in exhaustible intent, "Good man, if there are living beings in the land who need someone in the body of a Buddha in order to be saved, Bodhisattva, perceiver of world sounds, Kuan Yin, immediately manifests himself in a Buddha body and preaches the law for them. If they need someone in a Pratyeka Buddha's body in order to be saved, immediately he manifests a Pratyeka Buddha's body, preaches the law to them. If they need a voice hearer to be saved, immediately he becomes a voice hearer and preaches the law for them." So this is about basically the different manifestations that she is taking in order to help the different beings. And that's where the observing comes in as well. To understand what the root problem is, then you can appear in the right form to be the right solution. And this is also a skill that we hopefully are going to learn and be able to pick up in this course. I've also put down a really fun story about how my guru actually spoke about this recently when he was having a puja of the Kuan Yin puja. And he really talked about this story of how Kuan Yin appeared. It was like moments before an earthquake was due to happen. So Kuan Yin in her female form decided to appear, with white robes and everything, but with a full beard and a mustache. So what she did was walk from one end of the village to the other end. And as she was walking, this beautiful girl in a mustache and, covered with hair and everything, walking around, it drew a lot of people out of their houses. Because a lot of people were curious, some were shocked, they wanted to know who is this lady walking through our village. But she has a full beard at the same time. And right after she lured everyone out of their houses, the earthquake happened and a lot of houses collapsed. And then she suddenly magically disappeared. And she's known as the majestic virtue Kuan Yin. And this is how one of her forms, people started making statues of her after that because they realized it was Kuan Yin kind of appearing in a magical way to save them. And you also have different forms of Kuan Yin, like the fish basket Kuan Yin, the baby giving Kuan Yin, and so forth. So, but this is one of the nice, fun stories about her. So she works as a catalyst, can shock people into actually seeing reality or saving them, and can also listen to sufferings. So this is basically a little bit about the foundation of who Kuan Yin is. I've also put down at the end of your booklet some further reading materials if you want to find out more about the goddess and learn everything about her. So that's on your further reading bits. The next thing we're going to do now, we're going to go to the next part that we're going to start to do some practical stuff in a sec. So observing the sounds of your heart, this part is really about finding out what is happening inside of you. So to actually find out what is your internal voice telling you, what are you being drawn to, and what is the suffering there that's causing the patterns that you are creating in your life or your actions. So if you look onto page number 4, so page number 4, basically I put down some grounding about emotions and how to understand your emotions and also what your emotions are about. The most important thing to understand that if you kind of feel a feeling, most of the time when we feel a certain feeling, we often don't question the feeling because it's a habitual thing. So for example, when I feel angry, I know that I am angry and therefore I don't question that anger. But actually emotions such as anger, they're actually a secondary emotion. So what you actually feel or express might be a secondary emotion rather than a primary emotion. Because the primary emotion would be the emotion that's underneath that anger, that emotion that's underneath that secondary emotion. That's the real problem or the root issue or the real reason or even the trigger that's actually causing that anger. So when people are angry, they could be angry for different reasons. It could be some underlying kind of anxiousness there. They're not only angry, but they're anxious at the same time as they're angry. And where does that anxiousness come from? It could be a feeling that, they're not being listened to. It could be a feeling that, whatever's happening, they don't have control over and they feel powerless. It could be that they're feeling disrespected. So for each individual person, there'll be a very different response and a very different reason for that response. So in this next part, what I'm trying to get you to do is to actually identify what it is that's really your root cause. Are you really just, angry, or is there a reason behind your anger? You would find that 99% of the time there is actually a real reason, and there's usually a buildup of it as well. So when we actually burst out into anger, it's not because in that instant we suddenly feel anger. It's because there are many things that happen that have triggered us, that built into something that exploded as anger. So it's important to actually find out what it is that's kind of bit by bit built up inside of us that created this kind of trigger that exploded it as anger. So we're going to do some kind of detective work for yourself to actually find this out for yourself. Because of course, although you think you might be a little bit lost or not actually knowing, even sometimes why you're angry, the truth is that you are the person who knows you best. So trust in that. So I've also listed on page number 4 at the bottom the different types of emotions and how they can appear. So you've got the different categories on the top, like angry, sad, anxious, and how they can actually appear in a different form of emotion to show you that it's like a different extent of that emotion, to explain things a bit better and for you to be able to label how you feel more accurately. So please do refer to that. And you've also got another table on page number 5. I thought that was quite useful to put down some reasons of why people often get triggered. So that bit is about what triggered me. So your underlying causes of what could be the real issue. So have a read through. It might inspire you as well to help find, what is actually happening if you're completely feeling a bit lost or clueless there. But what I do want to say is that please, please, please always listen to within and your instincts of what's happening. So most often that is, the truth trying to come out. Sometimes we just know things without knowing why, and there it is. So that's a little bit about emotions, and I've also explained on page number 5 how we are going to do that. So first of all, what we're going to do is identify what you're actually feeling. That's step number 1, which is what we'll be doing in a second. Then identifying what actually triggered you to actually have these emotions, or even what is the secondary emotion that you're actually feeling from that, to get a bigger picture of what's happening. Then once we find out your triggers and what is the root cause of it all, then we can start to look at the steps we can take in order to shift and to transform that pattern of behavior. And that is the part where we start to understand how we go from being reactive to actually being able to respond, because those two things are very different places. So being reactive is that whatever's happening now, you're just it's like a reflex. So if someone, hits your knee and your knee suddenly pops, it's like that kind of response. And that is down to all the things that you already believe or the patterns that you already have. So it's almost like a habitual response or a habitual kind of way of behaving that you think is you. Which sometimes and most times actually come from the ego self, which is the false self that's actually creating all the issues. So to understand that, then we are able to put in, what steps that you need to do in order to transform it for you and find your true solutions, and to be able to release all of those things. Once we understand it, we are then able to let it go. Because when we don't understand something, that's when it keeps on going in our minds and we worry incessantly about it over and over again. So that is the bit of a capsule bit of what we're going to do. So before I set you off on doing the exercise on page number 5, I'm just going to read this as a reminder for you. This quote that I feel is very true on page number 5 at the bottom. Beneath every behavior, there is a feeling, and beneath each feeling is a need. And when we meet that need rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom. And that's by Ashley Warner. And that's exactly what we're trying to do on this course. So yes, what we're going to do next is that we're going to start working from page number 5 on the exercise on page number 5. So what you're going to hopefully do is to go through the different emotions. So the different emotions are labeled here on the corner here. To go through the different emotions and actually put down some things, like kind of thinking back to the moments either that when you've actually felt those emotions that suddenly triggered you in your mind, what happened there? What happened to actually cause that emotion to happen in you? Follow your gut instinct, and we'll work with that first, and then go a bit deeper later. So put down ideas on, what you think that feeling is like for you, or even what that feeling is about for you. So I'm going to let you have, I think about 15 minutes to actually go through this, and then we'll come back to discuss it. So yes, so we'll start working on page number 5 and exploring these emotions for yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So let me stop the recording now.